I'm willing to bet, regardless of race, creed, whatever, almost all of those people would almost fit in the same damn category. And so I always tell people it's not us that you have to be worried about it.
We want to welcome our good friend at this point, honestly, Mr. Shermichael Singleton from Guns Out TV, from We the Free TV, and from TV. Welcome to Whiskey and Windage.
That's a lot of TVs, man, a lot of syllables and all of that. Thank you guys for having me. I'm actually glad to finally come on this darn podcast, considering the last time I had to run some errands.
Right. We were
But
looking for you at Home Depot, never found you.
not this time. I'm here now. I'm happy to be here, and I actually watch all of your episodes that we put on the network. Believe it or not, I mean, I've learned quite a few things from a plethora of different companies. From PSA, you guys. I had other friends on talking about women's and gun rights, and you've had CEOs of manufacturers on. And so the point is, I think you guys are doing a really good service of informing people in a really nuanced way. Because most of the times, you guys know this, we live in a 3 second, 5 second world, right? Like you got 3 seconds to capture somebody. And if you don't get them, then they're just pretty much gone. And you guys are kind of saying, well, wait a minute here. Traditionalism still matters. There are people out there who want a little bit more. And I happen to be one of those people. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank
Man,
you.
we appreciate that too, man. I was gonna say, but then you kind of make me feel bad. But when you said I watch all your stuff, I was gonna be like loser. Um, you and my mom. Thank so Shermichael, for those we're gonna get to a segment in a second, but for those who may know you from TV but don't know your full story, how did you get into media, specifically political media and commentary?
Yeah, that's interesting. So this was maybe 2016. I was working for Dr. Carson at the time. He was running for president, and I was his coalitions advisor. So basically, my job was to figure out all of the coalitions that Dr. Carson's message would be most palatable with. So that was evangelicals. Obviously, he's a man of deep faith. Uh, the Tea Party Republicans, sort of more conservative, traditional Republicans. And then from there, once you sort of segment these groups, then you begin the process of quantifying your scope of methodology. How do we target them? Then you work with your comms people. Once you have your data, how do you message to those people to properly target them? And so understanding all the nuances behind a campaign, I'll never forget this. The chief strategist of the campaign at the time said, hey, we got an interview, and the campaign manager. So two different roles. You have your chief strategist who sort of oversees the overall strategy of a campaign. Then your campaign manager is like your operations guy, basically running the day-to-day stuff. He wasn't available. So the strategist said, the chief strategist said, hey, you got to go do this because you understand this probably better than anybody else. So I did. And the person who was interviewing me, the reporter, this was for One American News at the time. They were much bigger on direct TV, et cetera, before all of the issues occurred. And the guy, he said, man, you're really, really good at this. Have you ever thought about doing TV? And I said, no, that's just not really my thing. I'm a thinker. I'm a strategist type of guy. Maybe I might run for office one day, but no, being on TV is just not something that I really have a lot of interest in. And he said, well, you should reconsider that. Long story short, I ended up doing multiple interviews, and I kept getting the same response. You're really, really good at explaining this really complicated stuff in an easy way where people can just get it. And that was sort of the first intrigue for me to say, maybe I should consider this. And a couple campaigns later, a couple presidential campaigns later, I ended up getting on TV.
Hmm. Well, I've thought it was. I've always wanted to ask you that, and I've always been interested. How does someone like were you sitting there in high school or whatever, thinking about like, hey, I'm always gonna, my goal is to be on CNN and argue with these other crazy. But it's like, all right, so I figured I'd ask that. But
Man, let me tell you that, like when I was in high school, middle school, I only had one goal, and that was to always get into politics. I loved politics growing up with my great grandfather, meaning I spent a lot of time around him. West Point military graduate, a very, very smart guy, was always in tune with anything economics, anything business oriented, everything politics. And that was like my idol growing up. And so I knew from probably 6 or 7, like, I want to do this. I don't know what it really means. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I know that this is what I want to do. And thankfully, my parents, my family, unfortunately, a lot of families don't do this much anymore, but they realized, okay, this is something he's interested in. He's not really deviating away from it. So we're going to make sure he has every single opportunity to explore this thing. And so that's, meeting local school board people, local city council folks, the mayors, et cetera. Then as I got older, making sure I had internships with political figures. When I got to high school, making sure that continued. And so they really poured into, if this is something he's passionate about, we want to make sure he has every opportunity. One, to either say, okay, I don't like this crap at all. I want to go do something else. Or two, he realizes, okay, no, I really want to do this. And we've made sure he's had every opportunity to learn and ingrain himself. And that's something, Mike, that I think about often. And I have a 1-year old now, and I have a lot of friends with kids, and we talk about this, trying to figure out as young parents, how do I do what my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents did for me? Because man, the opportunities that I have had as a result of them starting me so early on, not saying, no, no, you can't do politics because that's just not something we do, or it's too complicated, or people of a certain whatever do this type of thing. You should go and maybe just become a lawyer, or a doctor, or something you typically hear from most people. No, they said, no, if you want to do this, we're going to push you towards it, and we're going to challenge you like hell along the way, but we're not going to make sure that there are barriers. And I don't mean barriers ethically speaking. Let me be clear on that. I mean barriers meaning this is maybe just too difficult, or, oh, if my parents pushed me a little bit more, maybe I would have that opportunity. They said, no, we're going to make sure every single thing can line up for you. And man, thank God they did, because my 6, 7-year-old dream at 35 years old now, sometimes it amazes me, like, wow, I never realized when I was a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old with my grandfather, watching the news, watching people debate, that I would one day be one of those people. I had hoped for it. I had desired it. And I think, man, if he was still alive, I can only imagine what he would say. You're doing what you dreamt of doing. And he would always say, only those who dream the impossible can make the impossible commonplace, man. So it's a blessing. It's a real blessing.
Yeah. So, Sherm, what I'm going to do now is we have reached our first segment, which is our Ask AI segment. So, you know the deal. So, what I had to do is I had to tweak AI a little bit, because I had to say less politic, more guns out, because I know what it could give me when I just say, hey,
Hey, who is Shermichael Singleton?
yeah, you're not even going to hear about guns out. I already knew that.
Premium performance doesn't have to come with a premium price tag. The Voodoo X series combines trusted EOTech quality with the features shooters rely on most. Adjustable parallax for clarity at any distance, an illuminated reticle for all lighting conditions, and magnification ranges for every scenario. Whether you're chasing big game or ringing steel, this lineup can do it all. The Voodoo X series from EOTech, precision within reach.
We asked AI, who is Shermichael Singleton, with a focus on guns out. And it says, Sherm is a political strategist and national media commentator who appears on major news networks and co-founded the firearms media platform Guns Out TV. Guns Out is a digital TV or digital show and media brand focused on gun culture, shooting sports, firearms, education, and Second Amendment discussions, hosted by Shermichael and Marine veteran John Keys. So when we look at this, it says also beyond politics, as I just said, you're involved in firearms media and advocacy through entertainment and digital media projects. So with AI, as vague as that could possibly be, like, is there something you'd like to say, hey, I'd like to add this, or, hey,
I
here's
mean,
how
I
I
wish you would have added We the Free.
don't know about that.
The new network. No, other than that, I think that's actually pretty spot on. And I'm not surprised. I mean, it's not hard to Google me and find a lot of stuff about me on the internet. So
Google.
I'm surprised that AI was pretty accurate. It even mentioned John and the whole idea behind Guns Out, the advocacy entertainment side, which was something that was a big focus of ours when we first started Guns Out TV, was how do you make firearms content fun, right? Because when we first started creating content, it was still really sort of operator focused, like, the real operator guys, and we respect those guys and thank them for their service to our country. But that's not where most people are, man. And we
Yeah.
were like these cool kind of hip guys, and we knew that there was this huge new market of people growing, 27 million, I think, as of today, according to NSSF studies. How do we tap into those people? How do we tap into the young guys, the 18 to 35-year-olds who are like, yeah, I certainly respect the operators and the Green Berets and the Delta Force guys and the SEALs, but that's not me. I'm just a guy who likes to go shoot guns or play Call of Duty and try to go buy some of my favorite guns. We wanted to reach that market because, let's be honest, guys, that's a vast majority of people. So no, it was pretty spot on.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I know that you're good at talking to camera. So I don't know if you look at monitors, but I'm literally holding up one of the We the Free cups as I'm drinking out of it today. Shameless.
He uses that thing all the time. We love it.
You're a real supporter. I love that.
Yeah. I'm
So
I got to do something.
we definitely want a good portion of this show focused on We the Free, but we do want to pry a little more because you are in kind of a unique position, and maybe especially from this side of the planet, right? That there's not a lot of folks that guys like Mike and I can walk up to and have those types of conversation with opposing views, right? So I guess working in major news networks, what is what's it like? Is it scary? I know that's really broad, but like, what's it like being pro 2A and being a fairly conservative person working in that environment?
I mean, no, it's not scary. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. And I mean, look, man, when you're a guy and you're black and you're a damn Republican, if you can deal with that, there's not a whole lot of shit, excuse my language, that's gonna scare you, bro. I'm just being honest, man.
True.
You talk about anomaly on top of anomaly on top of unicorn. So no, it's not scary. And I gotta be honest, I enjoy it, man. Do I get frustrated? Yes. Sometimes people make the stupidest arguments in the world. And I'm a very logical guy, studied philosophy, political theory in undergrad, economics, grad school. So I'm always thinking through everything through a deeply philosophical, analytical lens. And some of the stuff that I hear some of my friends on the other side say, I'm like, no way you really believe that. Like, no way in hell you really believe that. But they do believe it. And I enjoy the art of debate, the art of rhetoric. So it's fun for me, but more importantly, guys, it's fun for me to break down stereotypes. Like, we segment everybody in every darn category possible. What gender category, your racial, ethnic category, your religious category. And frankly, for me, I really don't give a shit about a lot of that stuff. It's like, look, I'm a guy with a certain particular point of view. That point of view is really important to me. And there are a lot of people in this country, about half, that also see the world through my lens. And I have an obligation when I'm on CNN, predominantly liberal leaning space with a predominantly liberal leaning audience, to represent to the best of my ability 50% of the country who says, yeah, I think Shermichael's right on 80 or 90% of the things that he discusses. And I have I have an obligation to be smart, to be well read, well researched, to be methodical, because I don't have a lot of time to not showcase the best representation of our views. Right? You got a lot of people who do the talking point stuff. That's not my style. Because because I want, when some liberal person is watching CNN, I want them to say, man, I don't agree with Shermichael, but I like him because he's fair, he's balanced. You can never say he's not well researched. He definitely thinks about everything. And if he thinks that way, then there's probably a whole lot of other conservatives who also go through that deep rhetorical analytical exercise. And so
Yeah.
I almost see it, guys, as like a real onus to represent our thoughts and way of life well. And sometimes you got 5 minutes to do it. And I don't take that crap for granted at all because I know the tropes out there about conservative people not being educated or, oh, these gun people are just
Mm.
a bunch of gun toting people, who don't think about anything else outside of themselves. And that's not the case at all. We're highly complicated people who really do believe deeply in the values of our country. And we believe, as conservatives used to believe a very, very long time ago, that it's easier to destroy than it is to build. That's why we think it's important to conserve certain things. That's why we think it's important to say, wait a minute, before we go that far, let's think about some of those unintended consequences. And I think I have an obligation when I'm debating that opposing view to do it as best as possible because I don't just represent Shermichael, I represent you guys. I represent, again, the 70 plus million people who voted for Donald Trump. When they see me, I want them to say, that's our guy and he's one of the best of us. And I want the liberals to say, damn, he's good.
So you've brought up the debate a couple times, and the word debate, and one of the stereotypes of politicians that a lot of people like to say on both sides of the aisle is, it doesn't really matter. It's all for show. They all play golf with each other as soon as, they're playing, they got a tea time tomorrow. They're all going to play golf together and they're all friends. What do people outside of the media, what do we get wrong when it comes to television commentary and how that works? Are you guys like, all right, Sherm, here's the story that we're going with today, or here's the topic we're going with today. I want you to take the hard Republican side, and I want you to point these things out. Matt, you're going to debate against him, blah blah blah, and then afterwards you're high fiving, or is this like truly your opinions and you're giving it, like you said, you are giving your thoughts with your own research?
Yeah, that's a two-part question. I'll answer the politician side first. I mean, politicians used to be really good friends behind the scenes, right? You think about Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, who used to be the Democratic Speaker of the House. They debate like hell, but then Tip O'Neill would go and have drinks and sometimes dinner with the president, and they'd figure out how to move legislation forward. That doesn't really happen anymore, and it probably hasn't happened to that great detail in about a decade, man, about 10 years, give or take. That whole bipartisanship is almost like an idea from yesteryear, like the halcyon days, if you will, something that is a bygone era. I don't really like that because what ends up being the consequences? I mean, you guys see it every day. Nothing gets done. I mean, I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican since I was 12 years old when I started a teenage Republican society, which is a thing most people don't even know exists, but it is a legitimate thing. And so I care deeply about conservative values, which are supposed to be represented under the banner of republicanism, right? That isn't always the case. And you look at the debt, well, hell, Republicans spend just as much as Democrats, just being quite honest about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Republicans do a little more of the things that I personally prefer. But I think if you were to ask most Republican voters if they believe that Republicans are actually conserving the things they care about fiscally, culturally, I think most people would probably say maybe it's like a 50-50 or maybe a 40-60, give or take, right? And so I say that to say the parties have just changed, man. The dynamics of how they engage with one another have changed. The visceral that you see, with the exception of a few people, more so on the Senate side than the House side, it is absolutely real. Now, to answer the question about being on TV and in the green rooms, et cetera, when we get topics, they tell us, like producers send out the topics, hey, we're talking about the economy. We're talking about this particular news article that just came out, or we're talking about Iran and some new intelligence or analysis that came out from the New York Times, whatever. So you have an idea of what the topics are, but you don't know the questions. You don't know how a host is going to frame something. And when you're in the green room, obviously we talk with each other. Like I have friends who are Democrats, and we talk like, oh, well, what are you hearing on your side, or what are you guys thinking? And we do honestly talk about those things. But once we get on air, we're not sort of like premeditated. All right, Sherm, you gotta take this position because, guys, there are times where I'll give you an example. When we passed a big beautiful bill, there were certain aspects of the bill that I supported. But as a fiscal hawk, I was like, well, what the hell is this going to do to the deficit? And it's predicated upon we're going to pay it down by some quasi theoretical idea. Well, that sounds great if I'm in the university, right, debating economic theory. But for the average Joe Blow out there who's working their butts off 40, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, they're like, okay, no tax on tips, cool. Some of the stuff for our older folks, Social Security, cool. But you're telling me we're about to add $10+ trillion to the federal debt? You're telling me that in 10 years, the interest on that debt will be the largest item we have to service? And the Republican Party is about to pass that, the supposedly conservative. I didn't support that. And so you actually found me kind of aligned with my friends on the other side, but for different reasons. They didn't support it because anything Republicans do, it's just the worst damn thing in the world. You guys know that, right? But I didn't support it because I truly believe we have an obligation to pass on an economy and a country to the next generation that puts them in an even more powerful position than us. We're not supposed to put them in a worse position. And so I didn't support that, just to give you an example. And the network didn't say, well, you got to take this position or that position. It was like, no, this is how I deeply feel philosophically. This is how I feel based on understanding economics. This crap doesn't make sense. And as a millennial, I'm going to have to figure out how in the hell my generation is going to pay for this. And then I got to think about, well, how my children are going to pay for it. And so to me, it just didn't make sense. So no, we're not forced to take one particular position. Mike, we just kind of take the positions that we personally feel are the right positions for us for the most part. Now, you do have people who, again, have their talking points. They talk to their folks on the Democratic side, and this is the message from the Democrats, or this is the message from the Republicans. I get those points. I'll look at them. Like, okay, well, this is where the party is going. If it makes sense, I'll take that position, but with my own personal spin, because to me, it's like you're not being authentic. Like, I don't want to read something that someone emailed me and then I go on air and regurgitate. It's like, no. Okay, Republicans, like we're going to attack Iran, and the president said this is the good thing to do. Well, everybody in the party is saying it's the right thing to do. Okay, that's a simplistic take, but what's the nuance to this when you start peeling back the onion? Okay, for 47 years, Iran has been the #1 state sponsor of terror. They've destabilized the region. They make it difficult via the Strait of Hormuz for there to be a consistency in terms of oil prices. They are a key ally to China. 80% of the oil that they produce a day is purchased by China, allowing them to sponsor terrorism. From China's perspective, that's 14% of their strategic oil reserves. So why would we want to go after Iran? Why? Because we want to lessen and diminish China's very obvious growing power in their region and other parts of the world. That's a way more nuanced perspective, right? That's how I would articulate why this is important. It's actually what I have been articulating on air. And so you can take a party position, but I'm of the belief you're a strategist. You have experience doing this. You have an obligation to your audience to be nuanced and not take a talking point. I'm like that. There are a few people on the Democratic side who will say, look, I think Republicans are actually right on this. Not a lot of them, but they'll have a more nuanced approach. But the vast majority of people, guys, they take their points, man, and they go on air and they articulate those points. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not critiquing anybody for it. I'm just simply saying that's just not my style. I don't want anybody telling me what to think and what to say because I might not agree with it.
Valid.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yep.
Good on you for that, I think.
It pisses people off sometimes.
Yeah, I bet it does. Yeah, you're
Every once in a while, I get a phone call from somebody saying, well, did you have to say that? It's like, well, guys, this is the idiotic way we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go on TV and defend something that just doesn't make sense just because we're a part of the same party. That's why people hate politics, man. It's because people tune out because it's like these guys, they go on and they say things that people know. Well, maybe that's not true. I don't really know because I'm not in the room, but it doesn't sound like it's adding up. Or people want more details, and it's like, hey, you should do that. Like, don't undercut the American people. Don't treat the average person like they're an idiot because they didn't go to Harvard or Yale. They may not have the college degree, but man, there's something powerful about common sense. It's that common sense that made us a $20+ trillion consumer economy, the most powerfulest country in the world. Europeans have higher college attainment than the United States, yet they have not surpassed us. Why? Because there's something about being an American. There's something about that grit that a damn college degree just can't give you. And so when I go on air, I don't talk to the audience as if they're stupid. I talk to them like I'm talking to you guys with the expectation that people will get it. And if they don't get it, they'll say, I can pick up my phone and Google what Shermichael said because I just want to verify that thing.
Yeah.
That'd be me.
And I'm cool with that.
That sounds like a John Keyes move. You sounded like him. You know what? I'm just going to pick up.
I mean,
I'm gonna
just
pick up
saying,
my phone
man.
and Google it. So, Sherm, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's get back on the topic of firearms, of the Second Amendment. Tell us, like, when did firearms become a part of your life?
Yeah, so I grew up in Louisiana at about 6 years old. My grandfather took me, my brother, and two of my cousins hunting. And I'll never forget these little 22 Winchester rifles. We killed a bunch of squirrels. I don't know if you guys ever had squirrel before, but
Hmm.
it's actually pretty good.
It's not
And so
bad.
that was like the first time I had ever gotten into guns. And I remember my mom freaking out about it because just growing up in the South, certain environments, you just don't want your boys around guns, right? Let's just be real, guys. It is what it is. A lot of urban areas have a lot of gun violence. My mom was just like, I don't want him around guns. I just don't want him anywhere near it. And my granddad was like, no, this is just, this is a natural course for him being a boy. I want to get them all into guns. Started that at 6. Fast forward a year later, my dad was killed by a gun. So then my mom's concern was like, absolutely not. So I didn't go hunting anymore after that. She was like, nope, that's over. I don't want any guns in the house, BB guns, none of the above. So it wasn't until I got to high school where I was like, Mom, let me I really want to get back into the gun stuff again. And she was just like, okay, fine, whatever. So ended up getting a couple BB guns. And then from there, got a couple hand rifles, all 22 LR type stuff. And when I got to college, I kind of built on it from there. And so the point being, it's something that's sort of been ingrained growing up in the South. The whole hunting thing was just always a part, especially my cousins. Like I have some cousins that live in the country in Louisiana. And boy, they're good as hell, especially with rifles. And that's just a part of life, like knowing how to shoot, doing it often. But being in the city, there's just different dynamics. You guys know this. It's one thing when you're in the country. When you're in the city, the laws are different. The types of people you're interacting with are different. And if you're in an urban environment, and by urban, I mean in a city environment, you guys know most cities have a higher crime rate than some of those more rural areas. And so my mom was like, I know what I see on TV. It's a lot of little people who look like you're doing a lot of dumb, stupid stuff. I don't think I want you necessarily near those things. So I had that little gap before I got back into it.
Okay. Yeah. So, what role, going back to your philosophical side, what role do you think firearms ownership plays in American civil liberties today?
Man, I think, guys, in 1,000 years, when our country no longer exists, presumably, and I'm only saying that because the Romans lasted about 1,000 years. We haven't had an empire that, I mean, maybe you could say the Ottomans in a quasi kind of way, but nevertheless, let's say in about 1,200 years, the United States ceases to exist. I think when historians write about our society, they will say we were an advanced warrior society. That's how I think is the best descriptive to who we are as a people. We are fighters, but we're cunning, we're clever, we're smart. We see things that other people, frankly, don't see, didn't see. And that's very obvious by many of the things that we have created and have given to the world. And so when you think about that ingenuity, you think about the First World War, think about the Second World War, you think about everything that came after, right? The international economic order, we built that order. Everything that we enjoy in this country, as imperfect as it may be, the freedoms that we enjoy, the freedom to move anywhere in the world without any issues, our ability to levy taxes against other countries, hell, our ability to run up our debt more than any other country in the world, all comes from the firearm. Our willingness to get into an international conflict and literally win it because they were going to lose. And then our ingenuity to say, okay, now that this is done, we're going to set up the systems for how this thing should now be governed. But it all goes back to the gun. You think about our founding itself, all goes back to the firearm. And so to me, that is an intrinsic part of who we are. Sometimes I've traveled across the globe a lot, and people will say, man, you Americans are just so crass in how you do everything. Just, you Americans think they're better than everybody, or you're so loud, or you're so this. It's like, well, yeah, that is who we are. And if you built your society the way we did, you'd probably be the same way. There would be a level of not arrogance, but a level of pride, a level of confidence. And to me, I think that all goes back to the founding and it all goes back to the gun because to be quite frank, if we didn't have firearms, we would still be a British, I don't know, British colony, British states. Who knows what the hell we'd be in today? Or maybe we'd be speaking French or Spanish, right?
We'd be
And so,
Canadian.
or we'd be Canadian, right? Some form of that. So to answer that question, philosophically speaking, I don't think you can remove the importance of arms from every single developmental stage of our country, from colonies on to the 21st century being the greatest society in the history, I would argue, of humanity. It always goes back to the firearm. Even when we have advanced wars and there are robotics, the robotics will be shooting guns that we made, right? So you see this through line going back to these black powder things, when you had these guys doing guerrilla warfare fighting the Brits who were up there with their red coats, they formalized and we were just jumping out of bushes and then retreating. You start there and fast forward to the day, you're like, wow, these guys did something that no other society was, quite frankly, able to do. We defeated the Brits. You're talking about the greatest navy in the world at the time, colonies on practically every continent. I mean, you just think about those things. And I don't know if the average American just thinks about the greatness of our society. And that doesn't mean that we have not had our flaws, our imperfections. No, that just exists with every damn body. But when I think of the Second Amendment, the reason it's so important to me, guys, is it's because it's like it's who we are. When I see people on the other side saying we got to restrict this right, so well, how do you restrict something that is a part of you? That's like cutting off your arm or cutting off your leg. You would never agree to that. So why would you remove the thing that when you think about your development was key to that development? It's like, would you not teach your child how to read and write? Would you not teach your child basic math? Most people would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. And so why would we remove the thing that makes us us? That's the way I view the firearms and
Hell
the
yeah.
Second Amendment. It's just important, man.
What do you think, Sherm, are some of the biggest misconceptions that mainstream media has working in that space? How do you see that?
Oh, dude, there's a lot of misconceptions. People only want AR-15s because they're planning to do bad things. Um, Gun people just want to collect guns because they're waiting for some doomsday. Well, if there is a doomsday, we'll be prepared, but that's one big misconception. Another misconception is, well, you having those guns won't really keep people safe, or there isn't a reason for you to have those types of guns. I mean, just the typical cliches that you guys hear. That those are quite honestly all the things I hear from people on the other side in the background. It's so the layperson on the other side, they're getting those things from the political people,
Right.
right? And they're just sort of passing those misnomers down, and it's really hilarious, right? Because I always tell people in TV, and by the way, quite a few of those people have guns, and I know this because they typically will call me when they want to get a gun or when they want to get into training. They say, "Hey, it's getting kind of dangerous. I kind of want to keep this low key, but can you direct me to a good trainer?" And I always try to do my best to do that, but I always say, "But hey, hope this changes your perspective, right?" Because when the police show up when an incident occurs, is usually after the fact. Very, very rare is it in the midst of the crime. They don't always think about that. They don't always think about the fact that most people who own guns, I would say 99% of them, it's in the 90s. I do know this for a fact based on the actual statistics, but I'm going to blow over it a little bit and say 99%. So give me a little grace here. But most gun owners are well trained, very, very responsible people, very family oriented people. They are the types of people, if the FBI created a profile of a gun owner, I'm willing to bet, regardless of race, creed, whatever, almost all of those people would almost fit in the same damn category. And so I always tell people it's not us that you have to be worried about it. It's the guy that's going to get the gun illegally, whether you ban certain guns or all guns or not. Their psyche, their mentality isn't going to change. The criminal mind, there's a shitload of research on criminality and how people like that, how their brains function. That isn't going to change because you're stripping away our rights to keep and bear arms. And so I always try to educate people. These misnomers are foolish because the focus should be on the people who are committing crimes with guns, right? Or addressing mental illness.
Yes.
That's where the focus should be, not stripping rights away from good, hardworking people who, again, are well trained, who are good collectors, who are the people who are responsible in the neighborhoods. They're the guy you want when someone does something bad to you and your neighbor comes out. If you're a woman, for example, that's the guy that's going to go running and say, no, 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 you're not going to do this to my neighbor, to the burglar, right? They're the guy who you can feel comfortable with when you're in a grocery store and some nut job who just got fired a month ago decides to come shoot up the damn place. That's the guy or gal who's going to pull out their gun and put their life on the line, risking themselves to save everybody else, people they don't even know. That's the archetype of a gun owner. And so I always try, man, to put those perspectives, guys, when I talk to people on the other side, I just try to get them to realize the misnomers, the fears or concerns you have just frankly aren't valid.
Yeah. I find it interesting because just based off the events that happened in New York a few days ago, when you look at all the videos coming out, it just blows my mind that a firearm wasn't involved in that. And I'm not going to give you how to do it, but you could get most of that stuff at Sherm's favorite store, Home Depot. Um,
Surely can.
but what blew my mind even more was watching how it went down and then seeing all the cell phone videos and the guys literally talking to cops and other people saying, "Yeah, y'all know that wasn't me. Yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it? Yeah, this, yeah, that, yeah, the other." Not one freaking person in those videos other than the law enforcement, not one person attempted to go after those people that I've
Yeah.
seen so far. And
And that's because if I could just interject, I mean, we live in a society now where people have just become numb, man. And I started off by saying, if you were to write a descriptive about the United States, you would say we're a warrior society, that warrior ethos. That's being suppressed a little bit.
Mm.
You see it a lot with men in particular. I mean, we're all guys here. We can be honest about it. We see what's going on with the suppression of just manliness. And I don't mean, sometimes people say, oh, the manliness, that means you want to just disrespect women or you want to go and do whatever the heck. That's not what I mean.
it's not a real man.
Real men respect women. We elevate women because we understand their importance that they play in our society. We protect women. We go out and put uniforms on and die on the front lines for ideals that most people don't even appreciate.
Right.
People who will never even remember or utter our names, right? Like that's what I mean when I say masculinity and manliness. That stuff's being suppressed. And you see it in the example you just gave, man, and you got a guy throwing a freaking pipe bomb. Hell, that's way more lethal than a darn gun. And that's the thing, right? Criminals will figure out other terrorists, they will figure out other ways to cause mass harm, mass destruction. And it's so unfortunate, guys, that we have been so willing to just give away our freedom, right? Like you think about something like the Patriot Act. I don't want to get into politics here
Yeah,
again,
no.
but that's just another example of how we just said, here you go. Just take it away. I can't imagine our founders when they were writing the Constitution, when they were going through the Federalist Papers, going back and forth, having these great debates about property rights and the right to defend and protect what is yours from the government or anybody else. I can't imagine when they were having those debates almost 250 years ago now, in about 2, 3 more months. I can imagine them saying, you know what, maybe we should have a clause that just says, but over time, you should just cede all of those things to the government. You should just cede all of those things to your neighbor.
That's what we were
Yep.
trying to escape.
They didn't do that, guys. But you have today a lot of people who believe that a unified form of governance is the best way to keep everybody safe, is the best way to decide what's good for you guys, what's good for Shermichael. Well, regardless of how disparate we all may be, it doesn't care. They don't care. And that to me is problematic because that is not philosophically at the core of our form of republicanism. And I don't mean party, but I mean in terms of governance. We've just never believed that. You can read every single old newspaper, old articles, old debates. Again, going back to the Federalist Papers, our founders were very explicit about how and why they wanted to form our society the way they did. And there were some key rights that they never wanted ceded. And now you have some of those things being stripped away. And that bothers me, because when do we no longer be America? Right? That should be the
Yeah.
fundamental question. Like, at what point are we no longer who we were intended to be?
No, that's interesting.
You take away gun rights, that's a pretty darn big part of it, man. It's a very, very big part of it. And I don't think people think about it in those terms, because everybody says, well, crime is going down. That's what they're saying. The police will show up, so I'll be okay. This won't happen to me until it does. And when your life is gone, you don't get a do-over. You don't get to say, man, if I just had that Glock on me, or that 2011, I'd be okay. Or if I had that shotgun, or if only I had an AR when I was gone and my wife and 5 guys burglarized a home and raped her and killed her. If only that was there, my family would still be okay. Well, these things happen, man. I'm not making this stuff up. You don't believe me? Look at the crime stats of most cities across America. Crime happens every single day. And most of those cities are saying you don't have a right to defend yourself against the crime against you. That makes that's almost like,
None at
I'll give you
all.
another example, because I like analogies. That's almost like getting in a car wreck, right? Or driving a car and the damn brakes go out. And then the government says, well, you can't sue Toyota, although Toyota just had a 300,000 car recall. And we know that's why it makes no sense. They're literally saying you don't have a mechanism to defend yourself against a bad action. We wouldn't say that in the example of the Toyota example I just made. Everybody would say, no, you absolutely should be able to go sue big Fortune 100 company Toyota, or you should absolutely be able to go sue this entity or that entity. Why then, however, does our mentality change as it pertains to the firearm? Why are people not able to have that right to protect themselves against a potential bad actor in whatever city across the country? The logic literally doesn't make any sense. Pretty hypocritical when you really think about it.
It's illegal for that guy to kill you. It definitely is
Right.
illegal for him to kill you, but you
Right.
have to let him do it.
Does that make sense?
Well,
Guys,
if he's going to try, you have to let him.
yeah,
it
well,
literally makes no sense. And again, that's why I use the Toyota example, because for people who aren't gun people, you're literally following the same form of logic here. It's simply saying, if a manufacturer, let's take Toyota out of it, any manufacturer committed a bad act against a person or group of people, you have class action possibility. The point being, you have a recourse to correct the bad aims, right? The government, for example, has set up certain systems in place to protect the consumer from bad things. Most people will say, we want those types of protections. Why then should the individual not have the same type of protection, albeit slightly different, codified for them? It literally doesn't make any sense. But when you frame it that way, and I've had these debates on CNN many times, I've even had panelists who Democrats who said, well, I'm not a gun person, but Shermichael actually has a valid point. Why will we protect the individual here, but we are going to remove the individual's right to protect themselves when they're not in that sort of government protection, or protective mode? It doesn't make sense, guys. And so when you ask those questions, you start peeling back the layer, you start doing that back and forth, the thought exercise. Even the most anti-gun person would say, I'm not a gun person, but I don't know if I wouldn't want the ability to have one if something were to happen to me. It's just the if.
it is. And on that note, Sherm, we're going to take our first commercial break, so we'll be back.
Your workspace matters, and the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360 doesn't play around. Built for serious shooters, this vise locks down rifles, shotguns, and ARs with zero movement and full control. Tool-free adjustments, rock-solid clamping, and a 360-degree rotating cradle give you access from every angle. No shortcuts, no compromises. Whether you're building, cleaning, or dialing in, this vise was made to keep up. Tipton Best Gun Vise 360. Built to hold, built to work.
Man, that actually was a good question, and I'm glad you asked that, because it allowed me to really go into our history and different periods in our country and the day. I mean, it excites me when you really think about it. I mean, that's why I have all these books behind me. I'm a nerd. I read a lot. And you think about just a lot of societies in the history of humanity, Homo sapiens, which is, you think about all of the different iterations of human existence, right? And us being Homo sapiens, and you think about the advancements that we have had that others did not have, Homo erectus, et cetera, all those that died out. We were the ones that prevailed. And then you think about the formulation of civilizations and the uniqueness to that, right? And then you think about ours, and you just compare and contrast us. And there has just never been any group of people as unique like us, man. And what's even more interesting is that we allow anybody else to come be a part of this.
Yeah.
That has never been tried before, ever, 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 with the exception of the Romans to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, we're unique, man, and it's unfortunate that people don't appreciate what we have. And it is a beautiful thing when you really think about it.
Amen.
It
This
is.
is not supposed to work. This is not supposed to work.
No, it's not.
We're tribal by nature as beings. We are tribal. I want my clique, and I don't want any other clique because the other cliques don't either look like me or there's a religiosity aspect to it. We say we don't care about any of those things so long as you subscribe to American idealism, freedom, property rights protections, right?
Mhm.
Governing yourself and being responsible, right? You know, there's a few more nuanced things to it, but if you're willing to accept those things, we say welcome here as long as you go through the right legal process. Nobody else does that.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's interesting. I almost asked you during the political aspect, the political side. I just didn't want to do it because I didn't want to get you in trouble. But I literally wanted to ask you, like, hey, you see everybody that's representing all of the American people. You have contact. You've had contact with lots of them. You see the way
Mhm.
the government works. And can you really sit here and tell me that at the last election, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were the two best, most qualified people in the America for us? And, I
I'm
want
glad you not ask me that, Mike,
yeah,
because when this damn thing goes live, I'd probably get a call from the White House.
I'm saying it's one of those things like, y'all
Mr.
for real?
Singleton.
Yeah, like, y'all for real? Like, I'm a Republican. I'm gonna go that way. But at the same
But
time,
you know what? But Mike, you know what?
these the
This
best
is
people.
how. Think about this though. We dictate by our vote who we want. It's almost like a purchase,
Yeah.
right? You go buy something for an exchange of a good. We give our vote in exchange for a candidate. We had other candidates we could have chosen. We had a primary. Now,
Yeah.
Democrats did not have a primary, and I have my thoughts on that, but we had a primary on our side.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of very, very talented people who I think even President Trump in his best day would say there are people who just have a better specialty. He probably would never say it on camera,
Never.
but in private, I think even he would acknowledge there's just some people who just know a little bit more. We didn't want those people because we wanted entertainment. We wanted
Mhm.
to give it to the other side. And I have my theories about that. I have my theories about where we're headed as a country in terms of reality TV, the advent of reality TV, and just how destructive that was.
Mhm.
You
It's not looking good, brother man. I'll tell you that.
you've watched Idiocracy, right?
I have. I
Okay.
have.
That's where we're headed.
That is exactly where we're headed. That is the best summation. That's
Look,
exactly
if
where
they
we're
had
headed.
one of those toilet chairs right now, I'd buy one. Like, I
I
would.
mean, Matt, dude, you should put that on the stock market. Hell, we'd all get rich.
Yeah.
Seriously. But that's where we're headed. And politics, man, I told a friend this a couple years ago. Politics is the only discipline where any and everybody's allowed to have an opinion like they're an expert and nobody challenges it.
Mm.
You can't do that and be a lawyer. You can't do that and be a doctor and be a scientist. Because people say, wait a minute, what are your credentials? What is the expertise? Why don't we say that with what I would argue is the most consequential thing because it impacts every damn thing else. Like
Yeah.
if we get this wrong, everything goes to hell.
Excuse me.
Everything goes to hell. But yet everybody's able to, and our founders, they designed it that way, man. And, arguably one could say that's a flaw in our system. than any and everybody without it,
The
give
other
or take. I guess the idea was you want even the lowest man represented, and I get that in theory, but man, our society is really complicated today, and the people don't hold, in my opinion, the import and the diligence needed to make the right decisions. Most people just tap out. I don't give a shit. This doesn't impact me. So
well,
why? Or is a Republican doing? I'm just going to vote.
well,
And that to me is just a lazy way of doing it.
well.
Real lazy way.
To say what else you said though about even they represent the lowest person. I think where the founding fathers got it wrong is they didn't put in term limits, which sucks, but also define lowest person then and now. Lowest person then was working every day and doing what they could to survive and make it. Lowest
Mhm.
person now completely depends on everyone else to take care of them. Uh,
You know what? I will go further to codify what you just said. Alexis de Tocqueville, when he visited the United States in the 1800s, 1700s, he was writing back and forth to France, and he said that the United States, he said this burgeoning society was the most unique of all of the different societies and cultures he had visited. And the reason why, he said, from the least educated person to the most educated person, everybody was engaged and learned, I think is how it was written, about the machinations and operations of the society.
mhm.
And what he was basically saying, and I'm basically saying, Mike, you're right. He's saying even the person who wasn't educated, who barely could read, understood the basic fundamentals. Okay, this is how this is supposed to work. I got to be engaged in this process. It's important for me to be aware. Today, man, you go out on the street, hell, you ask most people my age, Matt, your age, because you're probably around the same age. You
Yeah.
ask people any basic question about government, they don't
They
know.
can't name the capital city of our country. Like,
Don't know, man.
they don't,
And that's
no idea.
sad, man. That's sad because you think about China and think about how hyper focused they are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, we're not homogenous, sort of like they are, but just think about it. They're so laser focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is to defeat us however, wherever they can. That used to be our mentality in a very unique way, though, right? The difference is we can kind of match what they're doing. We were always difficult to figure out. Literally, that you read German philosophers, you read even some of the Chinese thinkers in the 1800s, early 1900s about the Americas, and you would always see this interesting premise across these different groups of just how difficult we were to figure out. It's like like these people don't make sense. Like this whole thing, this power, this wealth they have, none of this makes sense because it was just unoriginal, right? It was like nothing. It didn't make sense to how societies were built. People like Europeans and the Russians and the Germans and the Asians, they've been around so long and they have customs to how things were always done. And here we go saying, to hell with your customs. We're going to do it the America way.
Hold my beer.
And that's being lost upon us, man. And that's, I'm guys, if someone were to ask me if there's anything I'm worried about, and we're talking, and I'm going to go back to the gun stuff here. I'm worried that we're losing who we are. And this goes to the question that I was asked earlier about firearms, right? You're taking away things that define us.
Mhm.
Literally. You think about free speech. People want to suppress that. You're literally stripping away the things that are us. You take that away. You go to the Louvre
Mm.
and you start cutting up some of Picasso's paintings. Is it still a Picasso? Maybe, sorta, but not in its entirety.
Nope.
You start stripping away the Second Amendment. You start stripping away the First Amendment. You start stripping away people's property rights, and not even to get into legal theories, but you start taking some of those things away because the government has compulsory force to do what they want if it's in the government's interest. You start taking those things away, and then in 50 years, you're just kind of like, we're kind of America, but on life support.
Mm.
And I don't think any of your audience, I don't think any of my audience on TV or any of our mutual audience, anybody in the firearms industry or community who I typically think are more on the conservative side, I don't think any of us want that type of America. And I think, and I try to tell my liberal friends, the reason people get so angry about the Second Amendment, now maybe they don't articulate it as beautifully as I do, but it's that guttural instinct that they know if this is taken away, then everything else that's important to our freedoms will be taken away too.
It's unprotected.
And if you strip away the nature of freedom, then you have nothing. And if you have nothing, you don't have a United States of America. And most conservative-minded people, most gun owners, again, maybe they don't say it the way I just stated it, but they feel it. And they just know, like, if this goes away, something else is going to go. I don't know how to put my finger on it. Maybe I don't know how to really describe it, but I know I ought to be outraged about it.
Yeah.
And I try to explain that to a lot of my friends on the other side, you know, all the people with their fancy degrees, because it's the only way that they can understand it if you talk in philosophical terms. But I tell them that you don't look down on these people. Don't look down on half of the country, because what they're feeling is real. And I promise you this, you wouldn't want your children living in America that was weaker on the international stage. You wouldn't want your child living in an America that was more dangerous. Living in an America where the cost of living was so damn high that maybe we might have to look at some forms of socialism, because nobody's making any kind of real money. You don't want that.
No.
So say whatever the hell you want to say about the conservative, about us clinging to our guns, as some politicians have said in the past. There is this instinct in the conservative mind that says there are fundamentals that must be protected, because if we do not, everything else unravels. And that gets to the core of the Second Amendment. That gets to the core of the conservative orthodoxy.
Man. Well, let's Sherm, let's switch some gears. Let's get happy for a minute. I can't.
I wanted to laugh with Sherman. He's cooking. Let him cook.
Sherm,
thank you, Matt.
Let him cook.
Yeah, me ready to start drinking. But all right. So let's hear this story from your perspective. How did you first meet John Keyes?
So I was working for Dr. Carson at the time, and Dr. Carson had just dropped out of the presidential contest. He had asked me to become his communications director, and we went to this media entity in Alexandria, Virginia. I had came up with this idea called the If Ideas Forum, the Carson Ideas Forum. Basically, we were going to take CPAC and sort of create a version of that for Dr. Carson, for evangelicals, stuff like that. And John somehow knew my mentor at the time, and he happened to be in the meeting. And I'm in this meeting. I wasn't expecting him to be there. And I'm like, who the hell is he? He just didn't look like he belonged. I'm just like, who the hell is this guy? And why the hell is he in this meeting? And I know everybody in politics. I've never seen this guy before. And there definitely aren't a lot of black Republicans. We all definitely know each other. So it's just like, who the hell is this dude? And so he's just sitting there at the table. And that was my first impression of him. And I don't even know if he spoke. Maybe he said one or two things. And I was just kind of like, why are you here, bro? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you offering to the conversation? That was literally the first time I ever saw John in a very serious business meeting that he probably shouldn't have been at.
He always finds a way to get into those, though, doesn't he?
He damn surely does.
We've been riding his coattails and using him as leverage to get us into meetings that we shouldn't be in too. So he's now teaching the next generation of guys coming up. So he's still doing it.
Use it to your advantage. Literally, use it to your advantage.
So how does that turn into? Because I've got to spend a little bit of time with John. And then a little bit of time with Shermichael and a little bit of time with you guys together. And honestly, you have a great dynamic. You're so very different, but also like two peas in a pod. And really close, like you're the best of friends, honestly. So
he's like the brother I've always wanted.
Good. So how does he become unknown to now you guys are linked up doing doing Guns Out TV and We the Free. How does that relationship develop?
Man, so I didn't know. I was working for my mentor after Dr. Carson. I was doing Dr. Carson, his comms director, and also a consultant for my mentor who owns a media company. He owns a bunch of television stations across the country. John, I think at that point had just left the Pentagon. He was already out of the military. He was doing like accounting work for the Pentagon. He worked at Quantico doing their special projects, stuff like that. A lot of boring shit, basically, guy. He's sitting in front of an Excel.
Don't
crunching
throw him
numbers.
under the
Let's be
bus,
honest.
bro. He just
A
tells
lot of
people I was
numbers,
at
a
the
lot of
Pentagon.
equation. So my mentor hired him to sort of be like the operations director for his company. So that's what John did. I didn't really pay attention a lot to John, to just be honest. I didn't really think a lot about him because I'm just like, okay, this is random guy my mentor hired because he, he's a black brother and my mentor's a black guy. So he's always trying to give opportunity. So I was like, okay, what the hell ever. I just never really paid him any attention at all. And one day, somehow, we got into guns, and I think I had a desk. My mentor owns this building, and I had a desk in the side of the building where my mentor's main suites are, where his office is. And so when you first walk in, you would kind of see me first. And one day John just walked in and he would always like fuck with me, excuse my language. And I would always like, man, this guy's a complete dick. And at some point, I'm gonna really have to unleash hell on this damn guy. And one day he walks in and he was like, Sherm, something about guns. And I was like, oh man, I didn't know you were into guns. And we started talking. He was telling me about this trip he took to Vegas like weeks before with one of his Marine buddies, and they went shooting, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I want to get a gun. And I was like, well, John, if you're going to get a gun, you got to get a real gun. So then I pull out my Staccato, which was actually it was STI at the time. And I was like, you got to get a real gun. And he was like, well, what the hell is this, Sherm? I was like, it's a Staccato, or STI rather, a handmade gun, because they were still hand making them at the time. Really precise, expensive as hell. And you don't see a whole lot of them outside of people who are doing running and shooting because they're competitors, right? An open gun for USPSA matches. And he was just like, what? What? So I'm explaining this to him. And I was like, John, we just got to go check some stuff out. So long story short, we go to a guns show together in Virginia. He gets a Glock 19, I want to say, and Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 2, if I remember correctly. Those are the first two guns
right. I think that's
he ever purchased. And he didn't, and it was crazy to me because at that point I knew he was a Marine, and I was like, wow, every military person I know was a gun person, had guns, had multiple guns, and he didn't have guns at all. And so we went together. He got those two guns, and John, being Mr. Flashy, well, everything has to have some damn bling bling to it. It's always funny because I'm the one who makes all the damn money, and you would never know it because I'm not flashy at all.
Hey.
But that's John, and I love him for it. And he gets the M&P Sport 2 and he Cerakotes it like some crazy red color, and the Cerakoting was all super thick and the gun didn't work. I mean, man, it was a complete mess, guys. It was a complete mess. But that is how our friendship like really started. John being this nuisance, me not thinking much about him, not in a negative sense, but even with my mentor, I was really doing political business stuff, right? So there wasn't really a need for me to really interact with John much, but he would always mess with me because I always have a short temper. Like I'm a very serious, like about my shit kind of guy. And John knew that. So he would always, so he knew, oh, I know how to mess with Sherm.
I'm sure it's easy for him to push your buttons.
Oh, yeah. It is. Now I know how to deal with him, but at the time it was. And so that was the beginning. And then, like I said, one day he came in and started talking about guns. And then that's when I went down the rabbit hole about my passion. And then that took us to go to the gun show. And then from the gun show, Guns Out TV. And it's interesting because John came to me with the idea of wanting to do something together. This was like right before COVID with guns on camera. And I didn't like the idea. I was like, John, I'm a TV person. You don't know anything about being in front of a camera. I'm not going to waste my time doing this, one. But then two is like, you're new to guns, dude. Like, you don't know anything about this culture. I'm a Republican. I've been around these kind of people ever since I got into like working as a young person. Like, I know those are my people. Like, I'm a little browner on the outside, but those are my people. You don't know these people like I do. So I'm not doing this with you. And I ultimately said, you know what? Let's try it out. So we went to my mentor's attorney, who had this really beautiful property way out in Virginia, like 2-3 hours out, to film like our first kind of test pilot episode. John brought out his guns. I brought out some of my pistols, Glocks, ARs, etc. And we just filmed it, man. And we were just shooting, having a good time. And we just looked at it and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So then he's like, well, what do you think, Sherman? I was like, all right. I said, if we're going to do this, we got to do it well. I don't want to half-ass it because I don't half-ass anything. That's just not my style. We need to start a business. We need to figure out where we want to go with this thing if we're really going to do this, because this is time. And time for me is hard because I don't have a lot of it. And so we started the business. We started coming up with names, and we had 2 gun guys and guns. I mean, all kind of crazy stuff. And we were thinking about, well, maybe we'll just be content creators. And I was like, well, no, because you don't make any money from this. It's not a real business. You know, I have a TV experience. You understand the business side by working for my mentor. We can do a little bit more. We could probably do content for manufacturers. And we've done documentaries on SIG, and we've done commercials for Staccato that aired in every hotel in Vegas. And we've done stuff for Daniel DeFitz. You know, we've done a lot of really exciting, cool things, bringing in my TV experience and some of John's experience on the back end. And that was on purpose. Like, this wasn't by happenstance. It was like, hey, if we're going to do this together, there has to be purpose to this, man. And we got to be thinking about how to scale it, because I don't want in 5 years to still be doing gun reviews, because to me, I will feel like I've wasted 5 years of my time doing this when I could have focused all of that energy on my other political and business stuff. And that's really the genesis of how we got to Guns Out TV and even the network. Like, people think like, oh man, it's so cool. You guys just came up with this. We didn't just come up with We the Free. We were talking about We the Free probably after the first year of Guns Out TV. And I don't know, I think I saw something and came to John about it. And he was like, Sherman, that's so crazy. I was thinking about it too. So we both kind of came to each other with a similar idea. Like, man, what if there was like a gun kind of network kind of thing? Now, we didn't know what it could look like, what the real purpose would be. But the point being, we were already thinking, how do we scale this to the next level? Not just to have success in business, but this is a space that we both love, a space that I had been around a lot just because of politics, right? Targeting gun owners, trying to get them to turn out to vote because of Republicanism. So it was obviously a passion that I just always had because of my worldview. So I was like, how can we take something of an idea, actualize it, make it real, and make a dent in this community that we love? And this is something we've been thinking about, man, almost 6.5 years ago. And here we are today. And so the point is, the relationship happened by happenstance, but everything else was thought out. Now, sometimes the timing could have been a little off. I certainly believe in divine intervention. Sometimes things happened quicker than we expected. Sometimes God opened the door that you wasn't really thinking about. But the fundamentals, we want to go here, was always there. That was always a key driver, because I don't think you can get through life just by winging it. I don't believe in that. I think God will certainly make things happen that are well beyond our control. But I think even God has the expectation that you're putting forth the work. In fact, I know he does, because it's written in the Bible.
Yeah. So before I ask this next question, I think we just found out the truth. I don't think Sherm is Robin and John's Batman. I think it's the other way. He called you Robin. He said that you were Robin. He was Batman.
It was more because of the motorcycle suit. It wasn't
Oh, that was Power Ranger.
It wasn't financially motivated. It wasn't.
I love my Ducatis, man. I love my.
I was gonna say
Italian
you're over here calling John the flashy one, and I remember a bright red Power Ranger suit.
Matt,
I'm not gonna drop the MSRP of your Ducati on the show or nothing, but like, it's not a not flashy bike.
I used to have 4 of them. I'm down to 1 now.
Hey, I just
down to 1.
MSRP. I need the MSRP on that pajama suit, man. That thing.
You did look good. You look good doing
it. That was a custom Ducati suit
Here it
made
comes.
by what is it? Get the damn Italian company, but they make a lot of motorcycle gear. I have a lot of stuff from them,
and they only use the leather from the.
Man, I go all the way in. That's just my nature.
They only use the leather of bulls slain in a real bullfight, and so
I'm looking at this stuff because, like, he's the subtle one. I mean, he's the Bruce Wayne. He got the gold picture frame in the background. I ain't got no gold picture frame.
You know, this is actually an original photo
blow it
or
up.
painting I purchased this painting in a Sotheby's auction.
It's a cool painting. So is this just a painting of ships, or does it have American historical significance?
No, so this painting is of a ship by, I think it's Antonin Jacobson, I think is the artist, if I remember correctly. It is an American ship. Um, I want to say early 1900s, guys, if I remember correctly. And I really like the painting because I like ships. I have like other paintings with ships in them also. And I like ships because to me, ships express like forward looking, right? Like it express exploration. And to me, I think as a person, as a guy, as an American, like we should always be moving forward. Like I don't like to like. There's a reason the rear view mirror is so tiny, right? Because you glance at it, but the idea is not to focus on it.
Right.
Versus the windshield, which is
Mm.
huge, because your eyes are supposed to always be looking forward. And so I've been obsessed with ships ever since I was a kid. The engineering aspects of it, I think, are wonderful. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, was an engineer. He's now deceased. So I love engineering in general, which, and Mike, you may know this because you and I have talked about your gun making, and I'm really cool into what you're doing right now. But yeah, so that's why I purchased this one because again, the engineering, and like I said, it was a beautiful painting, but just what it symbolizes, the like, okay, people are moving, they're going somewhere. I just like the
That's cool.
idea of just trying to get to something.
I love that. I love that. So go ahead, Matt. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm
I saw you open your mouth.
chilling.
Sorry, Matt. My
I'm
bad.
just trying to breathe.
You know, you as what you do in the industry, in the firearms industry, as well as what we get to peek behind quite a few curtains. We get to see a lot of things that the average person doesn't get to see, and it's every brand just about has these incredible stories about the people and the companies. Why do you think that these stories often go untold? I look in other markets and it's very important for people to say, this is who we are and this is where we're from, and instill that small town, small business mentality.
Mhm.
Why do you think these stories aren't told as often?
I thought about that a lot. Um, when really trying to put pen to paper for why we should start We the Free. Think about this, guys. I think we could probably all agree, the three of us, that there's a war ethos to being an American. Like we like to fight and we
Yeah.
do it well. We love action films. We love seeing things blow up. We love seeing people shoot other people, good or bad, whatever that might say about our psyche. We love that stuff. And yet the gun industry as a whole, especially in recent times, a little bit different, long, long time ago. But in modern sense, we haven't really caught up or been able to rise with sort of the action out of Hollywood. We haven't told those stories and connected the dots to the Calls of Duty games or to the John Wick franchises, with a few exceptions like Terran here and there. We've just been very insular, Mike.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's because of how guns are viewed in the mainstream, at least the way we see it through the political lens, because you look at action movies, they usually always do well. And they
Mm.
usually always involve somebody with a gun. And
Yeah.
people love to watch them. And yet we have never told our story through that exciting lens. There is certainly the protectionism, right? Orientation of owning a gun. We all know that. That's one aspect, and that's the very serious stuff. There is the war component to it, where a lot of brave men and women put their lives on the line for our freedoms to protect them and maintain them and preserve them. But there is a fun aspect of it, and that's the cultural side.
Mm.
And I've always believed that our industry has got to do a better job of captivating culture, because it's clear that guns are okay in the movie sense. And we got to stop being afraid of the politics. And I think it's the political side. Just to answer your question about why, I just think it's the fear of politics, I think, that has prohibited us from telling the stories of a lot of these great brands. And I think it's because people are afraid if we just show ourselves too much, is going to put too much of a spotlight on us. I actually see it differently, just coming from the
Mm.
political background.
Me
I
too.
think we need to shine the brightest light possible to tell those stories of some old guy and his wife who started some optic company years ago, or some a magazine company, or Daniel Defense and Marty starting in his freaking basement, now building weapons for the bravest special ops guys in our country's history. Like, those are beautiful stories that could also be told in a movie. But
Yeah.
for some
Yeah.
reason, we feel like, we'll talk about it, but we don't want it to get out too far. And I think that's a big, big mistake. I think actually it's why we've lost a lot of the cultural battle when you add the politics to it, is because we haven't done a good enough job telling the story, normalizing it through that sort of action oriented lens, because people like action. Well, why not slip in the stories of the firearms industry into the action,
Mm.
into the entertainment? Because we know that's how most people reconcile complicated things, uncomfortable things, through entertainment. If they like it, if they're entertained by it, then the subtleties go away, the
It-
guards drop, then it becomes okay. That
yeah,
obligation is on us.
yeah, because it's interesting. You brought up Taryn, and
Mm.
you bring up like the movies, and you see the John Wick movies, and
Hmm.
everybody loves them. And on the same note, anytime that Taryn or anybody that's over at that camp post videos of, hey, it's not just movies, Keanu takes this stuff serious, and they actually show him shooting at the range. That
Yep.
stuff is just as viral. And so it's okay to learn to shoot like I don't know, a special operations hitman. Play like that's a mix. Special operations hitman to play a part in a movie. But if I just want to do that on a Saturday because I genuinely love it,
Hmm.
it's
You're an
frowned upon.
alt-right terrorist.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I said, guys, the onus is on us to tell the message that we want to be told. If I'm advising a political candidate, you got two options. You either tell your story the way you want it to be, or your opponent will tell it. And I can promise you, your opponent is not going to tell it in a fashion that you would like.
Mm.
No, they're going to frame
And
it.
so we have got to do what Taryn has done. It's funny because even people who I know who are liberal or Democrats, they know who Taryn are. I'm not, because they've seen his videos. Oh, the
Yeah.
guy, not the dude from the John Wick guy. That's it. Man, I watch his videos. They're so, and these are people who are not gun people,
Right.
but they think it's so cool. Imagine if more of that excitement was normalized with everybody, right? With the HKs, the Glocks, the Daniel Defense. And I keep saying Daniel Defense because I just love their ARs. I think they're some of the best in the country. But there are others out there. The SIGs, minus some of their issues, the Staccatos, and then there are so many other companies out there. But just imagine if, as a collective, all of these manufacturers, when their guns are in a movie, and Glocks have been in, you guys know this, every freaking movie you can think of has had a Glock, at least one.
Yeah.
What if Glock jumped on that? Get a Glock and come do training so you can be like Training Day, minus the bad aspects of it, right? but the point that I'm trying to make here, guys, is people look at that and that's cool. That is cool to a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
And if we can make training cool, then people don't look at it as like this rigid kind of systematized thing. They see it as, wow, this is fun to learn how to shoot like that. Not realizing subconsciously they're being trained to protect themselves, to be a protector of other people, of their families, of their communities. We have got to figure out a way to do that better. And that's not on the other side, because there are people who legitimately do not like guns. But I don't think that's the majority of people, because
Yeah.
I can just tell you, being at sin in a very liberal place, the number of people who see my content and say, man, that was cool. I want to come shoot with you because I want to learn how to do that. People who I know aren't gun people or who are gun skeptics, their tunes start to change because they see the fun aspects of it. And I have actually brought some people to the range, and they'll say, man, I don't know about the AR thing, Sherm, but I'm okay with the pistol stuff. That's a step in the right direction for me. And then
It's
you try to slowly get them into the ARs, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sherm, do you think, again, going back to mainstream media, because you get to work
Yep.
in both sides, do
Mhm.
you think mainstream media has any idea the magnitude of media for the firearms community?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. I, the mainstream media has one type of representation of gun people: bearded, white, tattooed, and typically to them lacking in formalized higher education. And this is not my critique. I'm just telling
Yeah.
you what I think, because I have these conversations. They don't think about the ingenuity that goes into the mechanics of building these weapons platforms. They don't think about the complexities of people who started these niche businesses and have grown them, supplying the goods and merchandises that we all enjoy. And then on the content side, most of them are unaware that there's this creator ecosystem that's constantly creating content, some good, some kind of bad, for the millions of gun owners in this country. They do not think about it and they don't know it exists. And I can tell you, because when we started We the Free, I had a lot of people saying, I didn't even know there was an interest in gun content. And I'm just like, are you serious? Do
What?
you not know how many gun creators exist? And as a whole, how many views that these people get as a collective? We're talking billions of views, because there are millions of gun owners. And most of them, may not be like us, who are out there advocating for the Second Amendment and doing what you guys are doing, trying to bring attention to what some of these manufacturers are doing through your unique style of interviewing. But the vast majority still want to learn. They still want to be
Yeah.
educated. And so they're going on YouTube, although I have my quarrels with that, because I think at some point that's probably going to go away completely, especially once we lose the upcoming election. But that's why we're building We the Free. I had to slide that in. But that said, they don't know that this stuff exists. And when I showed them this whole world, it was just like, wow, I didn't know people were even interested in this. So they don't know, man. They have
Yeah.
their misnomers about us, their perceptions about us, and they just think that that's what the reality is. And I guess in some ways, perception is reality.
When precision matters, trust the tool that delivers. The Wheeler Pro Series 100-piece fat wrench kit brings unmatched control to your bench. With torque you can trust and 100 purpose-built bits, it's the all-in-one answer for gunsmiths, builders, and perfectionists. Whether you're mounting optics or dialing in fine details, this kit hits every mark. Clean, confident, repeatable. No guesswork, no strip screws. Just pro-level performance in your hands. Upgrade your bench with Wheeler Tools.
So we've heard about the meeting between you and John. We've heard about the launch of Guns Out TV. So we've even danced around a little bit of the startings of We the Free, but you both came up with the idea. What inspired you guys to actually launch We the Free TV?
So I don't know how John answered this, but I'll tell you from my perspective. I don't want to speak for John because his answer might be slightly different on this one. For me, being a political guy who is also doing stuff that we're putting on YouTube, I know where things are going, right? Like, because it's my job to know.
Yeah.
And I've been worried about the inability for our industry and community to access quality content for a while. So going back to the original idea of like, oh man, we should do a network kind of thing. And then fast forward it again 5 years later, 5 years later at that point, of realizing like, okay, the time is now. For me, it was because I really thought we were on the brink of a lot of social media companies starting to crack down on all firearms content. And as someone who loves guns, who really cares about this community, I've met some amazing people in this space, and I really care about the industry as a whole that supplies us with the tools we need to keep this thing thriving. I thought that now is the time, because the fact that President Trump was likely going to get reelected again, which I did foresee, I thought once he leaves, if a Democrat gets elected, there's going to be a major backlash against a lot of stuff, because people
Mm.
have very strong opinions about him. And anything that is perceived to the right or extreme right, or even tap dancing around right, would, if at all possible, be diminished, be eroded, be destroyed. And so looking at that as a gun owner, I guess I can even say a gun fanatic, and I don't say that about myself in the negative, but as someone who just is passionate about shooting guns and learning about the mechanics of guns and the history of guns and keeping that moving forward for other generations to enjoy, I was worried, guys, and I'm still worried today that after the president leaves, if we keep the White House, and I'm not confident that that's going to be the case. It's early, but we'll see. I think a lot of those companies who do lean absolutely to the left on everything are going to say, okay, now we can start eroding a lot of this stuff. We don't want this content on our platforms. We don't think people should be able to show guns on our platform. And you've already been saying it, even with Trump in office and some of these folks, doing everything they can, the big CEOs, to not piss Trump off by donating to the ballroom at the White House and all this other crap. They don't believe it. They don't believe in conservatism. They don't believe in the right to keep and bear arms. They don't believe that this is an intrinsic piece of American history, of American culture. They don't believe in that. And so the only expectation is for them to go back to who they truly are. Tiger doesn't change its stripes. You can paint the tiger white, but eventually that white will fade and you will see it in its original orientation.
Right.
I view those people the same way. And so for me, I felt the time was now to do it, because I felt that in a couple of years, there's going to be a really big need for it.
That's good. That's good. That's good perspective, honestly. And I was a little unsure. I think it's pretty obvious in the industry. There's been some attempts at small networks or small like tube type things to
Mhm.
give people a place. I guess Rumble has done pretty well.
They have.
Comparatively, it could never be a YouTube. That won't happen again. But Rumble's well on its way to being a great counter to that, and there's going to be networks and channels and things, platforms springing up for people, and seeing the cream rise to the top is going to be an interesting thing. We are lucky enough.
Matt, if I can,
Yeah.
that's a really, really good business observation. You will see a lot that will get started, and many of them will forget about in a couple of years. Not to tell all of our business secrets, but one of the things that is really, really important to me as we keep scaling the business is starting to expand beyond just firearms solely. I
Yes.
know that there is an ecosystem of men who are yearning for a certain type of content, whether it's the extreme sports, whether it's more podcasts like you guys on guns, or podcasts that features men around things that we care about culturally, sports, etc., cars. And so our plan is to start branching off and having our tentacles bring on some of that type of content, because that is how you go from being a niche business to a scalable business that can grow and that can thrive. But it's all centered around the male ecosystem, because we are guys, and guys spend money, we make money, and we want to spend our money around things that are affirming the things that we think are important. Women have a lot of that. Well, you look at the data. Why do you guys think there's been all these little male focused podcasts popping up? Because the industry, being media entertainment, is recognizing that men are wanting that type of focused content. What we're simply saying is we want the firearms to be our foundation, and then to build on that foundation to create an environment that is hopefully the go-to for a lot of male-oriented content, from the podcast, from the extreme sports. And we've been having conversations with entities in all of those different sectors that are very interested in wanting to do some partnerships with us as we continue to scale the business. And so that's how I think about what I think the network can become over time. But it's one step at a time. We're moving in the right direction. We're growing month over month. We're moving in the right direction in terms of controlling our churn, getting that lower and lower. And so all of those metrics, to me, as an entrepreneur, are the key indicators that you want to see that forecast real growth. And so then it becomes, you will at some point reach a plateau, because people can still go to YouTube to get the gun content. Our guys over at Pepperbox, who we certainly respect, they're doing their thing over there, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to assess those things as an entrepreneur and figure out, okay, when you reach that plateau where you can't go anywhere else, how do you keep this growing? Well, we're not going to wait for that. We're already thinking about it now and are already putting in plans to probably this year start introducing some of that content and then targeting an audience, mostly men, who want to see that to say, hey, come here because this is your home. Don't worry about going all over the place trying to find it. We're going to find it for you and put it in one place.
Yeah. And so I want to piggyback off of that and go to the content that we currently have
Mm-hmm.
show. And I say this in the most respectful way, but you guys are operating like a big media conglomerate
Mm-hmm.
with a mom and pop shop budget. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that because it's you and John, your families, and
Yep.
whatever sponsors have jumped on. It's your blood, sweat, and tears that's funding this network.
Yep.
And so, what kind of content are you really liking right now on the network?
Mm-hmm.
And talk about what it's like, to be, you know, co-CEO. I don't know what you and John's titles are,
Go
but
CEO, we'll see up.
Co-CEO.
we're gonna co-sign this. That sounds like something John would say. But talk about, the unseen or the unspoken pressures of, trying to feed this fire and hoping it catches.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
No,
It is hard. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of money, man. We did Pit My Pew with Jeremy,
Yeah.
What the Kicks.
Shout out.
We did PSR, Print Shoot Repeat. You guys know PSR, who's a great advocate for 3D printed guns, the ability to make your own firearms, which I just love. A lot of younger guys are really, really into that. Some of the older guys don't really like it so much, especially on the manufacturing side, because it puts some of them out of business.
he can
Those
almost now shoot.
builds alone cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce.
Yeah.
As a startup, it's not tenable to continue to produce that type of content, but you have to hit it with a banger. You got to hit it hard. You got to get people's attention. And so we did that. Now the process is bringing on more unique creators, bringing on people who are doing, wonderful things, who are getting no attention at all, right? And saying, hey, come be a part of our family because we're growing and we want to put what you're doing in front of more eyeballs because our network is growing every single day. We're getting new and new subs. Every week we're getting more and more subs. I mean, I can tell you guys this information because this is okay. By maybe Q2 of 27, we expect to be at our break-even point. Imagine that in about 2 years.
Wow.
That doesn't happen often, man.
Oh, that's tough.
And so to answer that question just as honestly as I can, Mike, there are people who have said this isn't going to work. And I say, well, John Lovell was doing it with Warrior Poet Society. And I know in 2 years they were making a lot of money. Now, I do also know why John decided to go in a different direction. I don't want to get into that. But that's one example that this can work. And I'm of the mindset of instead of saying no, if you're a manufacturer, you're having hard times putting your content on social media. You can't really run any ads. How about you partner with us? Create a channel. How about when someone buys a gun, they scan a QR code, that code brings them to We the Free. And then on the front facing side, how do you disassemble your gun properly? How do you clean it properly? All of that can be free. And then it's on us to try to convert those people. And so we've been working on those types of partnerships. We got Fusion out of Florida coming on, Staccato's coming on. We're talking with a couple other manufacturers who are just like, this is actually a phenomenal idea. We've had some talks with the guys over at Brownells because there's a lot of content about building weapons on the armorer side that they have been wanting to produce for a long time that they can't put on YouTube. And so they're like, guys, this is interesting to us because we can put this here and then push our customers, hey, go become a member of We the Free. And maybe we incorporate some type of a discount for the customer by becoming a member. So there's so many possibilities here. And so I always say to people who have been slightly skeptical, I say, hey, why be skeptical? Why not look at it in terms of why this could work or how this could work? That's the way I like to see things. I think there are always naysayers, man. And,
Yeah.
there's a difference between people who have been successful at a lot of things in life and those who have had very limited success, if success at all. Because those who've done great things see things that nobody else can see. And I'm not saying that we're like some fucking special people here. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I'm trying to say is that we look at this not naive in terms of how the challenges that exist, but going into it and continuing it with what the possibilities could be. That's how John looks at it. That's how I look at it. And that's how you guys look at it with your podcast. I can't imagine a number of people who've said, what are you guys doing this for? You're wasting your time. This isn't going to go anywhere. I've looked at your numbers publicly on social media and they're growing.
Mhm.
So that's an indicator that you are going in the right direction. I watch all of your interviews. And the level and magnitude of the people that you're interviewing it certainly isn't what it was a year ago,
Nope.
but it's only increasing, right? Because people are talking. They're saying, "Oh yeah, I talked to those guys. They're solid." Or CEO saw another CEO on your platform and said, "Man, they ask great questions. They're getting the right information out there to our potential customers." Right? If you listen to the naysayers, Matt and Mike, you guys would say, "All right, let's just wrap this up." When you first got started after a couple of months,
Our wives would made us quit already.
right? And now you're getting sponsors. I mean, we've had 2 breaks. I listened to Mike, EOTech. I mean, these are major companies that are sponsoring your podcast. Those companies aren't going to put their dollars behind just anybody, big or small, unless they say, we like these guys, 1, but 2, we think these guys might be going somewhere.
We see something in them.
And exactly. So you don't listen to, I told John this when we first were becoming friends. I've done a lot of remarkable stuff at 35. I've worked for 3 presidential candidates. I've worked for the president. I've worked for senators, congressmen. I've advised them. I've run campaigns. I've advised celebrities on crisis communications. I've helped elect prime ministers in other countries as a political consultant. I've done political work in Africa. I've done work with import-export banks in other parts of the world. I've done a lot of shit to be under 50. And I always told John, because sometimes people will criticize me when they don't like something I've said on TV, especially people on the left. And John hates it because they'll always drag him in. And I'll say, John, why would I care about people who haven't even accomplished a quarter of what I have at my age?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And so I say that to say, Mike, about just the challenges of doing this. I really just don't pay attention to people who say this is impossible or that it's been tried before. Because then I always say, well, what are you doing? And if you
Yeah.
are doing something great, instead of telling me what isn't possible, tell me how you accomplish what you're doing and how I can learn from that to do what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do that, there's no point to the conversation.
No.
But that said, man, it's a lot of work. It's difficult. You have some days that are great. You have some weeks where we're seeing great subscribers. Some weeks where it's like, oh, it's kind of slow. That's just the nature of being in business.
Mm-hmm.
You have some partners who have said, "Hey, you guys, you're too early at this, not yet." But now that we're in the thousands of subs now and growing, they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, let's talk now. Let's see how we can do something with you guys." And so things are moving in the right direction, considering we're doing it on a shoestring budget. And as our monthly recurring revenue continues to increase by our subscribers, and thank God for the people who believe in what we're building, we'll be able to start doing even more expansive, exciting shows. But one of the unique things we've been trying to do now, bring on creators like yourselves who are doing unique things. We're trying to share profit with creators via our affiliate programs. And a lot of guys have been really good at saying, "Hey, I'm on this platform. Go join me." That's been really cool because it's like we're helping guys and then the guys are also helping the business grow. So it's like mutually beneficial. And we haven't been like, okay, we're going to get 80% and you get, or 90% and you get 10, or 95 and you get 5. We've been trying to be generous with guys like, hey, we'll increase the revenue share. And not only that, they're manufacturing partners that we've partnered with. Can we introduce them to you so you can create great content that will also be helpful to the network? And so we've tried to figure out real unique ways, guys, to bring our creators along the journey with us. And we even have some equity set aside in the business. We haven't given any of it out yet, but we even have equity set aside in the business to, at some point, as we continue to scale, to give out small pieces of ownership to some of our best performing creators, because we believe that when people feel that they're being taken care of, they do everything they can to help something do well.
bleed for
And I'm a firm believer in that, man. You take care of your people, they take care of you. You take care of your customers, they won't leave you. And that's been a big part of our ethos. And I think it's why in 11 months, we're at thousands of paying subscribers with about a third, almost a fourth of them now being annual. Meaning these are people who are signing on a whole year, meaning, it's not like you can just cancel it like you killed a monthly. These people say, no, I believe in this. I'm going to pay for a whole year.
Yeah.
That's a good indicator that we're moving in the right direction. And so bringing on those more creators, bringing on more content that the creators are doing on themselves, also unique content that the creators can do and that we cover the editing cost of, so that there's no cost to the creators. All of those unique ways to keep bringing fresh new stuff is things that we're constantly doing and trying to do and plan to keep scaling, man.
Love that.
Hell yeah.
Just remember, the hate never comes from below. I mean, the hate never comes from
Comes from
above,
above.
unless they're scared.
Unless they're scared. That's right.
One of the best
Scared.
One of the best
Oh,
pieces
Matt,
of
go ahead.
advice. One of the best pieces of advice I think my mother ever gave me. It was really short and sweet, but she repeated it over and over through my childhood, and it was "Can't, never did," and that was it. Can't, never did.
Can't, never did. I love that.
Yeah, can't, never did.
And the sauce.
Never did. I'm
Well,
laughing.
I can't do this. I can't do that. Like, can't. You're right. Can't, never did.
And you know what? It's also interesting, guys. There have been, and I think, Mike, you were saying this, there have been a couple of iterations to this. Prior to John Level, he's probably Warrior Power Society Network. You guys are probably familiar with that. John obviously was the first one to kind of really see some real success.
Yeah.
And I love John Level. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I think the world of him. And, he and I have had some interesting conversations just about this type of business and what it takes. And I have learned from that. I have relied on some of that advice that he's given over time in terms of how we move forward. We try to stay out of controversy, man. I have enough controversy being on CNN, debating liberals every damn day. I don't want controversy in this other part of my life. And so we keep our heads down. We try to work hard. We try to work so hard, man. We try to do the right thing by our industry partners. We try to do the right thing by our creator, entrepreneurial friends. And we just work. We don't try to get into other people's business. We're not did you hear about that type of people? When people are falling, we try to figure out, if we do ask what's going on, well, man, how can we be helpful? Is there anything we can do? Because that's a big part of who John is. It's a big part of who I am. But we just try to do the right thing, man. And I remember a friend of mine, much older guy, his name is Bob Brown. He used to work for Richard Nixon. He's a African-American guy, Republican. He was like one of the first Black Republicans to get a very prominent position. He's a part of starting the Small Business Association long time ago, SBA, big entrepreneurial guy. And Mr. Brown told me something. He said, young man, you can never go wrong by doing right. And so with all of the successes, with all of the hardships, with all of the forecast of profitability with the business, at the end of the day, we want to do right by people. And I just think when you do that, man, people are going to help you. They're going to open doors for you. Your subscribers, in the earlier days, months ago, last year, when we had a little bit of content, they weren't quitting. They were canceling, or not canceling, rather, they were staying. And those who did cancel, we'd email them or I'd call them and they say, man, there's just not enough content yet. And I say, just stick with us. It's early, but we can't afford you to quit. And they'd say, okay, I'll give it a couple more months. But they stayed because they got a call from one of the people who started it, right? Or any of our industry partners. Well, we've worked with John and Shermichael before, and they're great guys, and they're smart, and they're great orators of our product, and they deliver it well. This new venture is unique. We don't know where it's going to go, but we're going to go on the journey with them. Or guys like yourselves, man, I like John and Sherm, and they're good, and they're asking for our content on the platform. That's your credibility. You guys don't have to do this because you're trying to build your own thing. And the last thing anybody ever want in business when they're trying to build something is to give their new credibility that they're building themselves to something that may go down in flames. And yet you're taking the risk. Right. And so that's a responsibility that the two of us hold with such high regard, man. It's like the trifecta, the industry, the creator entrepreneurs, and then our subscribers. And we got to manage that, and we got to keep delivering. And it's not hard. It is easy. It's not easy, rather, it is hard. But the fun in it is seeing your friends grow, like seeing you guys when I see your podcast, who you're bringing on week after week, seeing your numbers on the public side, your Instagram's growing, the comments going up and up. It's seeing the subscriber count go up. It's seeing more and more on the industry side say, hey, we want to partner with you. That's the benefit. And that's what makes it all worth it. And then it's the ultimate goal of trying to change the culture, right? Trying to create this place for men, while also trying to change the culture and be good stewards of this important right that, going back to that original question, Mike, is who we are as Americans. Like, we want to be good stewards of that. And so, yeah, man, I know I kind of went all over the place when answering that question, but it was such a good question. And it's something that John and I talk about probably almost every day. Like, okay, are we doing enough to cherish the $9 a month someone has spent, or the $60 annually that they have spent? Are we doing enough to make this brand a good representative of this industry for our industry partners? Are we focused enough on the ad side with our creatives to make sure we got enough eyeballs for our creator entrepreneur friends who are saying, hey, here's my content, put it before more people?
Yeah.
We think a lot about that, man. And there is not a day that we're not always strategizing. How do we do more? How do we do better? And I'm doing that on top of all of my other damn shit. And so that just goes to show you just how important this is to us. I know that, again, long answer to the question, but I just really wanted to just show that this is something that we're passionate about, but doing it the right way matters, man. Like, it's not a quick money kind of thing. Like, I know a lot of rich people. I can go do a lot of shit if I really wanted to make a whole lot of money, and I'm doing that in other ways, right? This is a legacy building thing. This is a difference making thing, because the network does well. We make a cultural dent that helps the industry. It helps our partners get in front of eyeballs that may have never even thought about them. It helps guys like you with what you're building, because you're a part of the success from the early stages. We hope to be able to share in the success with you guys and some of the other guys who've come on at some point in the future. And yeah, man, that's just the way we're approaching this. Some people, maybe thinking about it differently. People are having a good time, but for us, there is intent behind everything.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
So Sherm, it's I think it's pretty fair to say that you're a subject matter expert on firearms media, on media pretty much in general, I think. So looking to the future, from We the Free, from what Guns Out is still doing, and I guess just from firearms content in general, where do you see firearms content in a decade?
It depends. It depends on our willingness to be positively forceful in the significance of this right.
Mm.
It depends on our ability to be happy stewards, but righteously angry when necessary.
Right.
It depends on our ability to be more open-minded and welcoming to new people, to not being so quick to castigate or ostracize someone because maybe they're not being the safest on camera. Maybe they just don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe their cultural way of doing things isn't the way we would do it. It depends on our ability to say we need to stop holding up all of these guardrails. If we can change those things, I think in 10 years we'll be all right. I think if we continue to become so insular, I think those who don't care for this are probably going to win that battle.
So, all right. So, my final question of the show before Matt gets to his. My
Yep.
final question for you is, after all of the media experience you've had, after working in mainstream media for a decade
Mhm.
and now building your own platform, what have you learned about the power and the ability of controlling your own voice?
I've always believed that the truth bears no lie. I think ontologically that is true. But I think the way most people live, the truth will be whatever and can be whatever to whomever. I guess this is maybe more a subjectivism take. It is intended to be by whomever controls the strings of that particular outlet.
Mhm.
Um, and that's something that I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of that at all. I don't want to live in a world, and you can even say this about guns. I don't want to build a platform where only certain types of creators can have their content on the platform. Your following is not big enough, so we're not going to bring you on. You don't have the certain look, so we're not going to bring you on. I, I don't like that, because every opportunity that I have had in politics and business, if somebody had that mindset, I would not have had any of the success. And I'm a pretty damn smart. I mean, I have a Mensa membership. I'm a pretty smart guy. And so I kind of like to have that same ethos for what we're building.
Mm.
There's a lot of power with building a network. You can certainly control things, and I imagine as we continue to grow, we'll probably really see that more and more from what I know coming from political media. There's a lot of power in it, but it's how you yield that power that's most important. And I think I speak for me and John when I say we want to use whatever power is enabled to us by our growing subscriber base, by our growing industry partner base, by our growing creator entrepreneur roster. We want to use that for the positive, and that is again to be good stewards of what we've preserved. Um, that's important, man. I cannot underestimate others who might want to build something and only get into it for the money, or maybe they kind of want to control who can be the next big creator. That's not why we're in this. If that were the case, I probably wouldn't partner with John if that was his mentality. Now, I don't think he would partner with me if that were my mentality. And so to answer the question more concretely, Mike, in terms of the recognizing rather the power that comes with building something in the media ecosystem and how you utilize that. We want to utilize it to give more opportunity, create more content for a growing customer base, and hopefully, build something where people in the community can be proud of. Like, I hope in 5 years when we have extreme sports like UFC, and maybe we do something with Monster and the Red Bull guys, and we actually have had some talks with some of these entities, and there is some interest as we continue to scale the company. Some of them want us to get to a certain subscriber count, which makes sense because they're a lot bigger, and it just wouldn't make sense for them to partner with us now. But the point being, my hope is like in 5 years, the community, the industry say, holy smokes, like look at what these guys have built. Right? Like think about Ben Shapiro was a good friend of mine from the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro started the Daily Wire 10 years ago. It was only just conservative him,
Yeah.
maybe Matt, I believe, maybe one or two of the other guys early on. Only podcasting. 10 years later, as of a year ago, I think, or 2 years ago now, a valuation of $1 billion, over 1 million subscribers, short films, kids stories, documentaries. You guys know Matt Walsh has had 2 movies now in movie theaters. Look at what he has done for the conservative movement. in terms of creating something for conservative-minded people that has surpassed merely podcasts.
Right.
My hope, if God is willing, I don't know if we'll get that big, but my hope is that we can do something like that where people can say, man, I'm proud of those guys because they have added such immense value to our industry and look at where they are now.
Yeah.
So that's what I would want to do with the power that I guess would come with building something like this is make a dent for the community to be proud, man, because we care about this industry. It's a beautiful industry with a lot of good, hardworking people who pour their heart and souls into this thing because they, like we, believe as stewards of something that's been passed down since the founding of before we even had a country, we got to keep it going. And the only way you keep it going is by pouring your heart into things that people can benefit from long beyond your own existence. And that's what we hope to do with the power, I guess, if you want to put it that way, that we might one day have.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's freaking rad. Very, very well put. Sherm, I've had a absolute pleasure getting to sit down and pick your brain. I think this is
I'm
the
happy,
longest.
man. I'm happy I finally get to do this with
Unfortunately,
you
it's
guys.
the longest conversation we've ever had. So hopefully, it's the beginning of many, many more. But I think that we're about at that time. And if
Well,
you
thank you guys, man. And again, I just want to say, yeah, I don't know how you guys, maybe you guys are going to chop it up or whatever. Just let me know. I'll be willing to share it across my social as well to put some other eyeballs on it. But good luck with what you guys are doing, man. I'm very proud of what you guys are building in here. And as I said, there are always going to be naysayers, but like your mom said, can't, never did, right?
can't never
Yeah.
did. Well,
So you
we
guys
got
keep.
one last question.
Uh-oh.
If
Uh-oh.
you watch to the end of every Whiskey and Windage podcast, then you know what time it is.
Yeah.
So we all like to secretly judge each other based on the types of guns we like to collect.
Yep.
It's not the apocalypse. It's not World War III, but you have to cover all the types of shooting that Sherm likes to do.
Mhm.
NFA doesn't matter. Cost of ammunition doesn't matter. It could be a freaking aircraft carrier if you want it to. But Sherm, what are your top 5 guns? What are you taking with you?
I'm definitely going to start with an AR, probably SBR, because I can get out to a couple 100 yards in distance if I need to take a long shot with the right weight, grain of the bullet. The barrel has the proper twist. The mechanic should allow me to get some decent distance shots if I need to.
Yeah.
But it's short enough for me to do CQB close combat stuff. So that would be number one. So multi-purpose. Secondarily, I have a pistol. Now, see, this is going to be hard, guys, because I'm a big 2011 guy. But the reality is, you guys know this. Any gun guy knows this. You probably want something striker fired if it's the end of the world, because 2011s are just too fucking picky. You get something into them, they don't operate. Let's see, you don't have the tools. So
Temperamental.
they are temperamental. So I'm probably going to go with something that's tried and true. I would go with a Glock if it's the end of the world. And
It's
again, I
pretty
love it.
common.
11.
Yeah,
But I would go with
we have a
Glock.
lot of critical thinkers.
I would change
Glocks.
the trigger though, because I want something that's a crisp trigger, and I would probably get a threaded barrel so that I could have a comp on the end, so that the return to zero is a little quicker, it shoots a little flatter, and I'd have a mag wall on it as well if I have to have quick acquisition. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm just thinking this through,
I
and
don't want
then
a competition gun.
I probably would have a Delta Point over the SRO. I think
Alright.
just the housing on the Delta Point is kind of beefier, more sturdier. I would say the Delta Point Pro. Okay, so that's 2. 3, I would definitely have a bolt action. I would want something long distance. I would probably get something that is in Chamberlain 338 versus 6.5.
Yeah.
Because 338 performs better at distance than 6.5. I'd probably get Norma Mag, I would say, because the
Alright.
damage drills that performs a little better. I know I'm being so granular about this. This is the nerd in me coming out.
No, no,
I
that's the
love
beauty of this question. It can be as
so that's
shallow or
what I
as
would
deep as you want.
agree. I would also have a shotgun. I would get a shotty, a semi-auto. I don't want to get pump. I want something where I could have capacity. And I want capacity because let's say I have my housing or whatever. I got a couple guys that are trying to come and steal my water or some shit. I want something where when I shoot, they're not getting back up.
Right.
Um,
I
and
like
then finally, my final, and this might actually be kind of interesting to a lot of people. I would probably want something that's like a black powder rifle.
Rad.
And I'll tell you why. If you look at some of like the original black powder guns, as long as you have access and the ability to create some type of black powder, and there are books on like ancient Chinese black powder making, so how you can learn how to like make this stuff with stuff that you can find out in nature.
Yeah.
I would want something like that, guys, because at some point you're gonna run out of ammo. You're gonna run out of bullets, you're gonna run out of casings, the whole nine. But if I have something black powder, I could go old school medieval style, throw rocks and nails,
I was
anything
gonna
I
say
can find.
I'm buying Sherma
Right?
blunderbuss.
And so that would be my cadre of weapons. Again, ending with that will be my last resort. Sherm, you can't find anything else to make any of these modern weapons run. This is your last resort. I could get creative with that.
Nobody, I think in our history, nobody has selected a black powder device. We've
Not
had
yet.
some really old school like breech load guns, like
Yeah.
single shot breech loaders, but
Yep.
that was
Nope.
the first time anybody's ever mentioned a black powder gun.
I
Yeah.
love
I mean, guys, think about it, right? Because if you know how, and I've read a lot of books, I've experimented a little bit with this. If you learn how to do that, you can create cannons to set up your own defense systems if things fail. You can start creating your own explosives to set a perimeter. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do that would still give you some level of protection if
Yeah.
your modern weapons fail, or while you're still trying to source items to keep those modern weapons running. That's
Yep.
a skill set that people need to know.
I
Amen.
agree with that.
Again, I know that's so nerdy, guys.
No,
but,
no, I love it. I love it.
and I know I kind of nerd out when I was talking about the long range stuff. I love long range, and I know there's like a lot of arguments on 6.5 Creedmoor, 338. You do Norma Mag. There's a lot of debates with guys on that stuff.
Guys could debate you. They might even disagree, but guess what? Sherm was educated about it.
Oh, I know my stuff, man. I mean, that's why you see all these damn books behind me. Now, these are all like economics, philosophy stuff, but I'm a profuse reader. I read everything.
Good.
And dude, it's so funny. John and I know we're about to end here, but John and I were having this debate. Well, it was mostly me, less John, but I was having a debate with this guy years ago about grip angles, 1911 versus Glocks. 18 degrees angle, which I believe is a 1911, if I remember correctly, as opposed to the 22-degree grip angle, I believe, of a Glock.
I think those are right. Yep.
And I remember debating with a guy about natural point of aim and how the human hand functions, basically, right? And just like biologically, why that degree angle works better for the vast majority of people is why if you could get a Glock and you could change your grip, and there's some companies that do this to get that 1911 style grip, people shoot Glocks better. Even I sometimes have my issues with shooting Glocks because of that grip angle. And I remember debating with the guy, and this guy, he said, I have never heard anybody talk to me about the muscular build of the bones and muscle tissue in the hand to articulate why 1 degree angle is better than the other. And I said, look, man, making a gun is a real science. And if you want to build something that is going to perform well, you got to know how the anatomical level, like how the human body operates and functions.
Amen.
And so again, I know I said a Glock, but then you heard me add in all of those things in terms of how I would make it perform the way I want. I know my shit is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Sherm, Sherm, we appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you
Very
coming
much.
on. We know you got a day job to do. So for all of our listeners still here, if you have any questions for Shermichael, leave them in the comments. We'll make sure he gets them. Don't forget to check out Guns Out TV on all of the on all the socials. And if you're interested or you heard something about We the Free TV and it sparked your interest, definitely go check them out. Take a look at the content. There's lots of great content on there. I'm a subscriber myself. So yeah, man. We would just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys. I've been wanting to do this. John, beat me to the punch, but I think my interview is a little better though.
I do too. So on that note, we will say, John, you're up next. We'll see if we can't keep topping this. But to close out, on behalf of Matt and myself and Shermichael, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next week.
When precision matters, every detail counts. The Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper 2.0 takes accuracy to the next level with advanced sensors, a sleek touchscreen, and effortless calibration. Whether you're fine-tuning or loading in volume, the IntelliDropper 2.0 ensures confidence in every drop. Frankfurt Arsenal, precision starts here.